I'm Lisa Muñoz with the Muñoz Group, and I am here with my friend, CEO of LoanPeople, Max Leaman.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming, Max. Max and I have actually been working in this industry for a couple of decades,
Yeah.
and we got in around the same time.
I was '01.
'01, I
Uh-huh.
was 99,
So there you go.
and we met up and we thought that we wanted to start working together. And I knew this guy was like a hustler and he was smart, but he had a baby face. He looked so young. And kind of just coming into the business myself, I was like, ooh, I think I need to work with somebody who looks older
Yeah.
and more put together.
Yep.
So we kind of went our separate ways for a little bit. And now Max pretty much runs this town. I mean, he's behind a lot of the money here. And so now that we're older and more mature and have established ourselves, we work together pretty regularly.
Yeah.
And we're going to chit chat a little bit today about our favorite topic, which is real estate.
Uh-huh. Affordability. What are rates going to do? What are rates going to do? What are rates going to do?
You don't know?
No, if I knew what rates were going to do, I wouldn't be doing this for a living.
Sure you would.
But I think in general, like we just need to get off the topic of rate. Buyers are afraid. Buyers are being told by the media and everything else, rates are too high. Rates are too high. Don't buy. Don't buy. Don't buy. But I think we all know as rates really do come down, prices are going to go the other way, and so there really is opportunity. So my challenge is for everybody to stop talking about rate and start talking about comfortability and affordability.
It's a good point, and it's interesting because the media works. I read a study the other day. It said over 80% of buyers think that now's a terrible time to buy a house. Those of us in the industry, actually a lot of us who are in the business, are buying houses right now.
Actively, yes.
Actively shopping for houses because we do understand that there is that sort of trade-off. When everybody is certain and confident in the market, prices, there's a lot of pressure on pricing, there's a lot of competition, and so people end up trading leverage
Yep.
for certainty. And those of us in the business understand that real estate is going to continue to go up in value. And if we can grab it at a time when prices are a little bit softer
Yep.
and the rates a little bit higher, what a great opportunity.
Well, it is. It's funny. We actually were talking before, and so I ran some numbers, and people were very, very aggressively and willingly going significantly over list price on properties.
Oh, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right.
No problem throwing 150,000 over
No
ask.
big deal, right? So we ran a scenario, 600, used May of 2022 as the basis for this scenario.
Why May?
May was the peak.
Uh-huh.
That was that was the peak. And rates were still about 5.25 in May. You have a $600,000 house listed in May. You probably paid $700,000 for that house at a 5.25 rate. Today, you probably pay $575 for that house. So I didn't know the numbers before we did this, and I
Yeah.
ran it. 600 price, paid 700, 10% down, 5.25 versus 575, 10% down at 7.
Yeah.
The payment at 575 at 7% was about $60 lower than it was paying 700,000, 10% down at a 5.25 rate. But we have customers that still don't want to buy right now because rates are so high, but they would have paid 100,000 and with 10% down, 100,000 over. And if it didn't appraise, they had to come out of pocket even more money. And that was okay, but it's this stigma about rates are bad and so I can't do anything.
So let me get this straight. Same house today, higher interest rate, lower payment than if you bought it at the height of the market, throwing all your contingencies out the window, short inspection periods, all of that.
Yep.
Yeah.
$60.
So we need to help reshape the conversation, right?
Yep.
So the focus isn't rates. The focus really is how much money can you spend every month on a mortgage payment, and how much money do you have to put down?
To part with, not down payment, total cash to close, right? That is one misconception that we talk to people a lot. I have so much to put down. So the very first question is, okay, you have that to put down, but how much total do you have? Because we need to figure out, you have closing costs. Do you pay for those closing costs? Are we negotiating with the seller? to pay closing costs. And there's a lot of that happening right now. I mean, we had a deal this week, it was about 300 grand, where the seller's paying $11,000 in closing costs,
Right.
which is, we were able to buy down the rate, and the customer's basically coming with their down payment, roughly $8,000
Wow.
to get into a house. It's those two questions. How much cash can you comfortably part with? And what is the maximum amount you are comfortable paying on a monthly basis equivalent of rent? Right?
Yeah.
Principal, interest, taxes, insurance.
Well, and I see that with people who come to me and we start talking about, a house price because they've gone online, they've done some mortgage calculators. They're like, I can spend, $900,000 on a house. And they haven't necessarily thought about taxes, and they haven't thought about closing costs, and they really haven't made other considerations to their payment. And so it's important early on to have those conversations with someone that you trust who's looking at your overall financial picture. And I always have people say, well, how much should I spend on a mortgage? So when people ask you that, right, there's the amount that the lender is going to qualify you for.
Yep.
But sometimes you're like, man, if I take all the money this guy's going to give me, I'm not traveling, I'm not going out to eat.
I'm eating ramen every night.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I get that a lot. What do people that make what I make,
Yeah.
what do they buy? And my answer is always the same. It's different for everybody. It is not a one size fits all. What do your debts look like? What does your lifestyle look like? Right? I almost don't really care what people qualify for, and I really try to move the conversation away from that, because a lot of people will qualify for substantially more. I mean, I'm talking to a couple last week, they want to be in 450. They qualify for $1 million. Like, we don't need to talk about that. Let's
Yeah.
talk about comfortability. Where are you comfortable? That's how, you're going to get yourself into something where you don't get in trouble down the road.
At the same time, and so it's not a one size fits all, and it is a conversation, because I also run into folks who try to be too conservative out of the gates. And so, the conversation is, are you early in your income producing years? Because if you are, you're going to grow into this payment really quickly.
That's exactly right.
And so our goal is to always help clients find the best combination of their values at the lowest price.
Yeah.
But if more money means a better location and better condition, and you can still afford it, and you can still accommodate the rest of your financial goals, you should consider it. So in our buyer consultation with a buyer, we walk them through an exercise of going through their budget and trying to determine their maximum housing budget, which is not their house poor number.
That's
it's like,
right.
what do you have to spend to live? What do you want to make sure you've got in here with the travel, with the happy hours, with the yoga classes? And then what's that maximum housing budget? Once we have the maximum housing budget, we put it to work from day one. If you find a house that costs a whole lot less, awesome, let's go for it. But we know that we haven't missed something that you could actually afford to buy.
That's right. And I like that y'all do that, because not a lot of people do. And it's one thing that I talk to buyers about, especially first-time home buyers about. They don't know they haven't sat down to actually do a budget.
Yeah.
I think we're only comfortable with $1,500 a month. Okay. So when I hear something like that, my first question is, have you actually put the pen to paper? Do you actually have a budget, or are we just going off of feelings? Because feelings are great, but let's work with data. And usually they say, I never thought about that.
Yep.
So that's generally their homework. I need y'all to go and figure out, like, what are we spending our money on, and what is our real budget? Mind you, making sure that something is going into savings every month as well. Like, that's really should be the first expense you have, is your savings.
Yeah. Well, because, with a home, there's maintenance, there's upkeep, there's
Things happen.
utilities. Yeah. And property taxes.
Yeah.
I mean, they will likely go up.
Yep.
Year over year. And so it is a balance where, we never want someone to push the budget beyond where it needs to be, but we don't want them 2 years down the road going, man, I could have been 15 minutes closer to work for $200 a month more.
Yep.
And we would be doing them a disservice by not helping them figure out what that number
That's
is.
exactly right. It's exactly right. Because that 15 minutes, how much do you save in gas, right? Like,
Yeah.
it all matters. I think the same thing when you look at a house versus a condo. Because there's some people who don't know, they want to go either way. Well, your payment on a condo is probably going to be more expensive than a house because of the HOAs, but you don't have all the same upkeep that you have with a house. You know, sometimes your bills are paid. Certainly aren't watering the yard and mowing the grass and doing all of those things. So, you know, it's really looking at the total overall picture.
We've been chatting here for a bit about all of these different options. And so, for us, when we hear someone say, what's the rate? It's so much more complex.
It
There's
is.
so many other considerations. I also feel like people who've just been shopping around over the past couple of years, they're waiting for rates to go back to 3 or 4%.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's not going to happen.
No.
Like, we don't want that to happen. Like, you have to think about all the things that were happening in the world for rates to be 2 and 3%, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, do you see that we'll ever go back there?
I mean, look, I've learned in life,
Yeah,
never say never,
never say
right?
never, right.
Do I think that rates will ultimately be back in the fives? I really very firmly do.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
I think fours is very, very much a possibility. 2.5%, 3%, that was, if you got that, congratulations.
Yeah.
You'll never get it again. But who knows? 5 years from now, could rates be back in the high threes? Maybe. But what are prices in 5 years, right? No matter when you bought,
Right,
the best time to buy was still yesterday.
right.
Sure, some people bought at the peak and they'll come back, but yesterday was still
Right.
the best time.
Yeah. And so and that's the thing. Like, who knows if rates will ever come down as low as they have been.
Yeah.
But if you own a place already and you bought them at today's rates and today's prices, then there would be an opportunity to refinance.
Strategy is really, really key. And that's what's going to set buyers today up for success in the long run.
I mean, I think that that's the other thing too, where between one lender and another, the rates are going to be pretty close. But the big difference is in experience and strategy, and someone who really wants to understand where their client, their customer is coming from, not just today, but where they're trying to go. Because real estate and the way we're doing this, we're playing the long game.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it's really interesting too. One of the things we didn't talk about, and I keep coming back to mortgage insurance because it's so overlooked and it's such a big part of the overall payment and packaging. Even just calculating the income, if you have two different loan officers calculating income differently, and so one has a debt to income ratio of over 45% and one has a debt to income ratio under 45%, that right there could be the difference in 30, 40, 50, 60 bucks a month in mortgage insurance.
Interesting.
But a lot of people don't know that, right? So if I'm just focusing on rate, but lender A is an eighth of a point lower than lender B, but when you start looking at it, lender B figured out how to get the payment lower by no other mechanism than just calculating income properly.
Right.
It's not difficult to do, but a lot of people don't do it well in the industry. It's those little things. Are you self-employed? How many times do people say, well, these other three lenders couldn't get it done.
Yeah.
I'm self-employed. My CPA is a genius. He writes off everything. I show
Right.
no income.
Yeah.
Right? There's different ways to put that together. And, when rates are 2.5%, 3%, like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's here's your rate, move on, everything's fine. But when affordability really is an issue and comfortability matters because it is the difference between $50,000, $100,000 in price point, strategy is key.
It is, and that commitment to the relationships. You've been in it for a long time. I've been in it. We've helped people. We've helped their kids, their parents, their brothers, their sisters, and so we are there to help them create wealth and to do well by themselves through their real estate investments. And I don't think every realtor or lender is talking about that stuff with their folks. And our people just call us, they trust us. They're like, hey, Max, tell me what I should do about that. I mean,
Yeah.
I do that
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about buying this property. What do I need to be
How are we
thinking
going to do this? What are we going to do? And we've talked about stuff like that before.
Yeah.
I mean, it's super, super important that whoever you're working with
Yeah.
is that they're doing all of these other things and not just looking for a commission.
And doing it, you've used a couple of, $450,000, $500,000 price point examples. We are this committed to our clients' goals at $450,000 and at $4 million.
Exactly.
We take it seriously. We want to get it done for you. We want it to feel good for you. And we don't really care what the price is. We care how you feel about the place you're going after.
It is, and I know you and I have talked about this before too, through my career, and I know through your career. I never looked at the money. Like it was always about like how are we helping people and how many people can we help?
Yeah.
And the money comes, but that's never been the focus, and I think that's why us and people like us have been successful is because we do care about people.
Yeah.
And that's the ultimate goal.
And they feel it, right? They
Yeah.
know. I had a blast. As you can tell, we love talking about this sort of thing. Thank you, Max, for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And if there's anything we missed or questions that you have, leave them in the comments below. We look forward to hearing from you.